Hey there, everyone. What's up? Today we're back with the long awaited, well, not really long, but much requested and much demanded impressions video for Shin Megami Tensei 4 on the 3DS. So, I'm going to start by saying that this is going to be a long video. Um, I'll try and give like a short little thing in the beginning, just in case you don't want to watch this inevitably far too long video. But I want to say I took notes, sort of took notes while playing of things that I wanted to talk about in the game, and plus whatever comes to my mind. But I have about 3 pages of notes, and that's notes. It's not things I'm going to say. It's just like bullet points. So it's actually like a lot of stuff to cover, and I don't think I'm going to get through it in any reasonable amount of time. So this is going to be a really long video. If you really like Shin Megami Tensei and you want to hear about the new one, then please listen. If not, I'll give you a short overview right now. So, in really short, this game is a game that is really good. It's really good. There are problems with it that I'll talk about, but nothing that's game breaking. There's no like programming issues or anything. It's not like it's full of bugs and I couldn't play it. It's actually quite well done, but there are a lot. I don't want to say a lot, but there are a few issues that I want to talk about with it. But generally, if you are thinking of buying it, buy it. If you don't have a 3DS but you want to play it, buy a 3DS and play it. It's worth it. It's a good game, and it's definitely worth having. But let's talk about it a little bit. That was my really quick should I buy it or should I not buy it kind of overview there. Besides that, though, why? Why am I saying this? What am I talking about? So, this game, it's good. And it's really good. It's not just good, it's really good. But I'll explain to you. I guess I'll just start at the beginning of the game. So, when you start up the game, you'll notice a few things right off. First things you'll probably notice is that the beginning is very not Shin Megami Tensei. And that might not matter to a lot of you. It might not matter to a lot of people who've never played any games in the series or have only experienced something like Persona, which is not a Shin Megami Tensei game, but it's similar, not really, but it's somewhat similar in like system. It's not similar in theme at all, but in this game, you start off, and it starts off unlike Shin Megami Tensei 1, 2, and 3. It doesn't start off in Tokyo. It doesn't start off in a city setting at all. It actually starts off as almost like a fantasy RPG. You start off in a castle and actually start off in a village, and then you're kind of like heading to a castle for a ceremony to see who can become a samurai, which is kind of like a knight in this case. It's not, they're not, they're kind of samurai-ish, but everything is like a European castle. It's like a fantasy RPG, seriously. So you'll start up playing, and you'll kind of, if you've played 1 and 2, or 3 really, you'll have the feeling that it's not very Shin Megami Tensei. It doesn't feel like Shin Megami Tensei because it's really, uh, old timey castles and things. It's very, there's no guns in the beginning. There's none of that. It's just swords and castles and dungeons and things like a fantasy RPG. And you kind of start to wonder, is this how the game is going to be? Because if it is, it's kind of a letdown. Because the first there's a big chunk of the game in the beginning, the whole opening part, and it's not a short opening part. It is a couple hours of gameplay where it's all like this, and you're kind of starting to you kind of get into it, and you start to wonder like, what's going on? Why is it suddenly a fantasy RPG? But rest assured that after you get past the beginning part, you understand why it's like that, and you understand it does become like a Shin Megami Tensei game quite a lot, actually. It's actually beyond the beginning of being It's like Last Bible, I guess I'd say. Beyond that, it's the the tone is very good. It's very much like Shin Megami Tensei 2, I guess. I don't want to say it's, yeah, it's like 2. It's the game it's most like is Shin Megami Tensei 2, I'd say. Um, 1 starts in Tokyo and then their demons show up, so it's kind of like in the middle of being everything is being destroyed during the game. And in 2, it's 30 years after the destruction of Tokyo. So you've actually you're actually in like a destroyed Tokyo. And in this game, 3 is like something, it's like totally out there. It's not really connected to 1 or 2. I mean, it is, but it's not. the the setup is different because 1 and 2 are directly connected, but 3 is only kind of tangentially connected to 1 and 2, and 4, on the other hand, seems like it's connected to 1 and before 2. I don't really know how to say. It seems like it's connected to 1, like, but not connected to 2. So it could be like an alternate version of 2. I'd say that's how it feels to me, at least. When you there, it could be like 1. It's very much like the aftermath of 1 instead of what actually happened in 2. So it's probably just like another alternate universe. It's not directly connected at all. But I assume that the events that happen in the game are after the events of similar events to 1, because that's how it ends up. But inconsequential. You don't have to really know about that. It's not really important to know that for the game, but it's something I picked up on right away. And another thing you might pick up on right away is that it's on the 3DS, and if you want to use 3D on it, the 3D is, how can I put this? Simultaneously horrible and good. And let me explain. The 3D is like completely unusable at any setting besides the absolute lowest setting. Anything higher and it just becomes blurry. It doesn't become 3D. You get just dual image ghosting. It doesn't really work. So, but if you leave it on the lowest setting, it actually kind of is helpful. And usually I don't play many games on the 3DS with the 3D on because it kind of gives me a headache. But the this game I played with the 3D on most of the time, because on the lowest setting it doesn't really screw with my head that much, and it adds like a little bit of 3D to some of the scenes, which is nice. So there's that. If you really like the 3D in your games and you think like it's necessary for a 3DS game, you're not going to like this game because the 3D is broken beyond the lowest level. That's the only way I can explain it. It just doesn't work. Um, you see, I have a lot of notes, and I'm gonna intermittently be looking at them, but they're disjointed. They're just kind of things I was jotting down as I was playing, so they're totally out of order of anything I want to talk about. But let's think about this. I want to talk about the difficulty of the game. It's probably something I should get out of the way right away. Um, this game is not difficult, and I say that like, well, I say that because for me it was really not difficult, but it's less difficult than any of the previous games also, and it's less difficult for very specific reasons. Um, that I will get into. I'll get into all the specific reasons later, but overall, the game is a lot less difficult. If you had trouble with Shin Megami Tensei 3, if you've played it, you probably won't have much trouble with this game anyway. If you thought Shin Megami Tensei 3 was all right for difficulty, not too difficult, not bad, not not easy, but not bad, this game will probably be just fine for you. If you thought 3 was hard, you might not even find this hard. I don't know. You might. But I found Shin Megami Tensei 3, that's Nocturne, to be relatively easy. I don't think it wasn't very difficult at all, I thought. But this game it's even less difficult than that one. So I think a lot of the main part of it is that the systems in the game are different. They're different than the other games, but similar. They're similar in the sense that the way you do things, the way you attack, the way you use magic, the way you fuse demons and use demons in the game is generally the same, except everything's been kind of streamlined, I'd say. Streamlined, I don't know. Um, so instead of having you actually have less options, I think is how I would put it. There's less things to worry about. So there's less physical defenses you have to worry about. I think there's one less, and there's less kind of status effects that you have to worry about. Well, it's not that there's less, actually. There's the same. I think there's actually more status effects in this game than previous games, except that they're all cured by one of two different healing methods. They don't all have separate healing methods like the previous games. So it makes it even though there's more status effects, it doesn't really make it doesn't make it more complicated because there's actually less ways to heal it, meaning that you have like these kind of all-purpose healing for two like different kind of groups of status effects, which makes the game a lot easier. And I don't know. I think there's another thing that actually I want to bring up is that the grinding in this game is totally unnecessary. And I say that I'm not saying that because you know um, it's easy. It's unnecessary because the the experience you get is scaled, and it's scaled when you fight monsters. But fighting monsters is actually like the least efficient way to gain experience in the game. There's so many other ways to get experience that you don't have to grind at all. You just have if you do side quests, you'll get way more experience from finishing the quest than you would from fighting monsters. Um, you can get experience. You get experience by fusing demons. You get a lot of experience just for chatting with demons. If you talk to them in the battle and you get them to join you, or you get them to give you an item or give you money instead of fighting you, and they leave, you'll get a ton of experience, way more than you would if you had actually fought the demons. And you can also get bonus applications in your demon summoning program to give you bonus experience when you do that. So you can actually get up to 3 times the amount of experience you would get normally for that, which it means that like if you want experience quickly instead of fighting, you could just negotiate with everybody and you'll get a ton more experience than you would by grinding. And the main quests and the story quests are all scaled, so you'll be leveling up quickly with those. And they're scaled. It's actually pretty funny because after you beat the game, you can start playing again, and you can start and keep your same level that you were at the end of the game. So if you're like, if you're like net level 95 or something, and you start the game from the beginning again, you'll gain a full level just for doing the like beginning mission, which is like talk to some people and go to sleep. And I mean, you literally do nothing and you've gained like hundreds of thousands of experience points because it's scaled that way. It's scaled to give you levels or percentages of levels for completing missions, which means grinding is unnecessary. If you're grinding, you're playing wrong, basically, is what I want to say, because it's specifically made to not grind. If anybody reviews this game and says that they really needed to grind a lot, they're wrong. They're just wrong. It's straight up wrong because you can do so many things without fighting to gain experience. So if you were worried about having to grind a lot of levels, don't worry about it. Let's see some notes. So let's talk about the demon fusing. Demon fusing is at first I didn't like it. I want to say that. At first I thought like this is really hard to use. There's not a chart like the other games. In the other games there's usually a chart where you can say this type of demon mixed with this type of demon will equal this type of demon. There's none of that in this game. You have a program that it works like a search engine with parameters, So you have a million drop down menus basically, and you can search by the type of demon you want and their category or the skill you want them to have. But it only works on one level. So if you had a Jack Frost or something with ignore, like some kind of ice defense or something you wanted to add to a demon much later on. Well, you couldn't say use this Jack Frost and then import his skill to somebody. You have to do six different fusions to get to that last one. It doesn't work that way. You can't. It only go from it one level basically. So if you actually want to do that, like get a bunch of skills from past demons from a long time back and import them to a much later level demon, you'll have to do it manually. You'll have to figure out each part and literally write it down or just remember it if you can. But I had so many levels of that it wasn't possible. Like I had to do. It took me an hour and a half for each of my last demons to finally get the ones that I wanted, the final party I wanted. And it was worth it. I mean, it was fun to do that, but I mean, I had to take notes. I couldn't do it in the program itself. And that's all right. Actually, kind of enjoyed that because that's how the other games were too. But every time, and this time it is easier. Once I figured out the kind of intricacies of the searching parameters and stuff, you kind of get used to it, and it's actually a pretty good system. But at first, I thought it was really unwieldy, and there are some really unwieldy parts with it, like especially towards the end of the game, when you have so many demons, and you can carry up to I think 24. It might be more than that, but I think it's 24 total demons you can carry in your inventory. And when you have that many, and then you want to use demons also in the that you can summon through the I don't know what it's called. It's going to be the demon encyclopedia or whatever. It's not. I don't know the English names for any of this stuff. This is all playing in Japanese, but in Japanese it's the Akuma Zensho, but it's just like the Book of All Demons or whatever. But when you're playing it, you can select in the drop-down menus. You can use that demons in there plus demons you have, or just demons from there, and make new demons. And it's helpful, but once you have a certain amount, you won't get any results back anymore. It'll keep coming up with too much stuff, and no matter how many drop-down menus you use, it'll keep coming up with too many matches for a lot of stuff, unless you especially for things you don't know about yet. If you have a specific skill that a demon has, it's easy because you can select the type and the skill. But sometimes you'll be selecting, you just want to create this new thing so you can use it in a different demon later on, and you can't get it to come up no matter what because you have too many selections coming up. There's too many options in the search, and it doesn't give you any results back. It'll just keep saying you have to be more specific, which is a pain because normally you wouldn't have to do that. And it doesn't have a chart, which I thought was bad because in cases like that I could without using the search program, I could just look at the chart and do it myself. It would take half a second. Just find the two things and see what it makes. But you can't do that. You can't do it manually, is what I'm saying, which makes it somewhat unwieldy at points, especially later in the game. Let's see. Okay, I wanted to talk about the random battles in the game. There are no random battles. People who don't like random battles rejoice. It's actually, because it makes sense that there's no random battles now because because the experience is scaled for the quests and negotiations, that if you can avoid battles, you should just run away from everything. That the monsters show up on the map, and that they'll attack you if you get close. So it's like Persona in that sense, except the demons in this one are way more aggressive than the ones in Persona. And they're a lot faster too. They're faster than you are usually, so sometimes it's really hard to run away. It's not even possible in a lot of cases. And sometimes they materialize beneath your feet, or 10 will show up around you all at once, or they'll jump out of off of a roof of a building or something. You have no chance to get away. So it's almost like random encounters in some cases because you have no option. You have to fight. And but it's not bad. It's not excessive. I didn't think it was excessive when I was doing it. And lots of times I would just run away because it's not like I really needed to level for anything. So I want to point out that like I'm saying that you don't have to grind and you don't. And by the end of the game I was like level 90 something. Uh, so it wasn't it wasn't because I was grinding. It was just because I was playing through the game normally and doing all the side quests. If you run through the game and do all the side quests and you have to go to all the different places, you'll fight enough stuff and you'll get enough experience from the quests themselves to level up way more than you even necessarily need. You probably wouldn't even have to be level 90 something like I was to beat the game. It wasn't that difficult. The final bosses were like almost every boss in the game was pretty easy actually. Um, it was rare that I couldn't beat it on the first try actually, and that was for most of the bosses. Some of them are a little tricky. There are some that have like some kind of tricky patterns, but for most cases, not really. I mean, they all have like their own kind of like special attacks, but the way to beat them is the same for almost all of them. You can use the same kind of plan for all of them, which is kind of disappointing actually because uh, previous games you had to kind of strategize a lot more for the boss battles, where in this one it's not really necessary if you've made a good party. I want to say if you've made a crappy party, you're gonna get wiped by every boss every time. But if you've played the series before, you kind of have a good idea of what you should be doing with your demons and how you should make your parties. So it's generally not that difficult if you kind of already understand what you're doing. So there's that. Let's see. I wanted to talk about the enemies. There are a lot of new demons in this game. There are a lot of new ones and a lot of old ones, and I think there's 400 something total. I haven't seen them all, I don't think, or I haven't made them all. I didn't go through and make every demon in the compendium, but yeah, it's they're hit or miss, I guess. There are a lot of new ones, and some of them it's not Kaneko's not doing the art this time, so some of them are good and some of them are bad, and some of them are crazy good and some of them are like stupid bad, like I don't understand how they got in the game bad, and it's weird. And some of them are, I don't want to like specifically. Okay, Medusa, you'll see her really early in the game. I thought was horrible. I really hated that one, especially when it was up close. When you're fighting her, it's not horrible. It's still bad though, but it's not good. And some of them look really cool, but they don't. They look just out of place. Like you'll find ones. I guess they got artists who did the Kamen Rider monsters, and it looks like Kamen Rider monsters have suddenly invaded your SMT game, and they look cool. I think they looked really good, except they look way out of place in comparison to everything else, which made it just made it weird. Especially because like the Kamen Rider monsters are usually remake versions of previous demons. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're completely new. And there's actually some really cool ones. Like one of the first bosses you fight is the Minotaur, and it looks awesome. I really liked that one. But it's there's a lot of stuff in it that it's questionable. I thought like I didn't really enjoy the art style for a lot of it. That it just didn't mesh well or was bad. So there's that. There's also a cool type of cool type of thing they did with enemies, where they, instead of having you fight, one enemy, one enemy, one enemy, like, that's a normal battle, and it's 2D, but all the 2D sprites are animated. They're not stationary like your standard, like, SMT 1 and 2 are, but you have them in the game, and they continue. What was I saying? That of the different types of monsters, sometimes you'll get these ones that aren't like a single monster. They're a huge group of monsters, and it's awesome. I mean, it's just like a, a million different sprites copied over and over again, but they count as one group. And it looks really intimidating. No matter how many times you see it, no matter how many times it happens, like you'll fight one monster in the beginning of the game when you're weak. You'll fight like a kind of mid boss, and you'll fight that mid boss, and then suddenly afterwards, it's like you're fighting 40 of them or something in a group, and it's like, holy hell, this is going to be the hardest battle ever. And it's not really, but it looks that way, and it always looks that way every time those things come up. And they don't even give a lot of experience, but sometimes they drop good stuff. But it's always intimidating when they show up, and I thought like that was a really good effect. It really worked out well for that. So it's a kind of a new enemy type that was really interesting and cool. And it's like totally made up of like the existing enemies. So it's not like they made a new thing. They didn't draw anything new. They just kind of copied and pasted a bunch of stuff all together into one giant group, and it's actually a really cool effect. So I liked that. Thought that was really nice. Let's see. I'm talking about normal enemies in the game. I said the game is not that difficult, and I didn't think it was. Except sometimes, no matter how high of a level you are, sometimes normal enemies will just wipe your party. It just happens. Like you just get unlucky sometimes. So sometimes someone will get you with a an instant kill, and it'll just screw you. Like they'll do an instant kill and your entire party will die. That happens. It's just unlucky. It's you can prevent it if you build a good party, but sometimes you can't avoid it. Sometimes you just don't know that's coming. Or sometimes you'll get careless and you'll just kind of like, I can auto battle this, and then you'll turn on the auto battle and you'll be dead. That happens. Even you think like, oh, I'm 20 levels higher than these dudes. I can just auto battle this, and you can't. You really can't. The auto battle is like almost, you shouldn't use it most of the time, even if you think it's going to be easy, because those they will even the weak enemies will wipe you if you're not paying attention. Just pay attention and it's easy, is what I'm saying. Let's see. But okay, another thing I wanted to talk about with the difficulty was that you can save at any time, and I guess that's helpful. I don't really mind that. I don't think it's a bad thing that you can save at any time. The previous games you can't, but in this game you can just save wherever you like. If you want to save every 10 minutes, go ahead. It's fine. And it's also like Persona. You'll have situations where like anytime there's a boss, like it'll be in a room and you can go in. Before you go in the room, you'll get a warning saying like, I feel a strong demon presence coming up, you should maybe take care, which means save jackass, save is basically what the game is telling you. And so you should. I mean, that's not a bad thing. I don't really mind that. But there is something in the game that makes it kind of easier in the sense that you if you die, if you get wiped, it's helpful. But if you die at a boss or something, you should have saved before you went in the room. If you didn't save before you went in the room and you get wiped, you don't lose your progress. You can. I mean, if you really just decided like, I don't want to take advantage of this. But every time you die, you don't really die. You kind of go to the underworld, and there's too long of a line, so that Charon will just be like, give me some money and I'll send you back to the right before where you died. And you will get sent back to right before where you died. Which, I want to say that it makes it easier. It does make the game easier. But it also makes it more convenient in the sense that like you won't be losing hours because you got wiped on like a random weak enemy and you hadn't saved for an hour, which is that happens. I think that it's helpful for that, but and there is a penalty. The amount of money you can get in the game is limited. It's actually really limited in the beginning of the game when you don't have many options, because you can't get money. It's Maka in this also, but you can't get the money by killing enemies like you can in previous games. There's only certain ways to get money in the game. You have to collect items from across Baby, basically like item spawn points is what they are, because they're always in the same place, and you collect an item from there and the color will dim, and then you can come back in a few hours and it'll be green. They're green. It'll be like bright green again. You can get more items from there, scavenging basically, and you can sell them at vendors to get money. And that's basically the way you'll be getting money for most of the game. There are other options. Some enemies, very rarely, there's some enemies that drop money, but they're mostly like human type enemies that will drop money, but it's rare. You couldn't farm, you wouldn't be able to farm money that way. And but there is another way to get money, which is cool. You can you can extort demons when you fight them. So you can basically you're like a try to get them to fund your activities. Basically, in the ability you get is called fund, and you'll talk to the demons, and you'll keep like pestering them for money, and they'll give you money, but they'll like get mad sometimes. So you can pester them for money, and they'll give it to you, and then they'll tell you to stop asking me, stop bothering me, and you can ask again. You can keep asking over and over until they get mad, or you can stop. But if you keep asking, the amount they give you will be more and more. So you want to. I always kept asking and asking until they got mad and attacked me. But and then like the next turn, just go back to doing it again if I needed money. But it's not helpful in the beginning because the amounts you get is so small, and the things you want to buy are so expensive. So it's kind of, it's not very helpful in the earlier parts of the game. But later in the game, you can get thousands and thousands of Maka every time you do it, and it's really easy. So towards the end of the game, you'll probably exclusively be using that because it's really easy to get a ton of money really quickly. So that was really helpful towards the end when I was trying to get some good armor. But thinking of that, speaking of the armor and the weapons and armor are, well, the weapons are pretty much the same. You have swords or spears, I guess, but it doesn't really matter in this game. And I'm saying that it does matter a little bit, but it doesn't matter like the previous games where, you had the different types of attacks that the physical weapons did. So there used to be a like kind of, maybe you have a weakness to piercing weapons or slashing weapons or something in the previous games. And there's none of that in this. It's just physical attacks basically, and then you have gun attacks. So it's been simplified to that. It's just two types, physical and gun, I guess. And that's like Persona. It's like Persona 1 or 2, I think. I think those ones are like that. I don't remember clearly, but I know the earlier SMT ones are much more complicated. But what'll happen is, you'll be able to buy a lot of weapons and find a lot of weapons, but I guess it depends on what kind of character you like to make. I almost didn't care about the weapons the entire game. I didn't really, I never bought weapons. I just used whatever I found. I never went to the trouble of, saving up money to buy weapons because I rarely used them. I was using magic attacks almost every time. So, that's how I play. I mean, I always use magic. I just basically make a magic user in all these types of games. And well, I mean, in the first, I want to say in the first games you couldn't do that. You didn't have the option. But in this game you can use magic. So, and 3 you can use magic also. So that's how I made my characters, and that's how I made them in this one. So I didn't care about weapons. I didn't care about guns. Actually did use guns every once in a while, because some monsters are only weak to guns, but that's how it is. That's their weak point. So you just use it to get the extra attack and then blast them with something else later. That's generally how it works. I don't know. So if you like to be a physical based character, like you're going to boost your strength crazy, like you're going to have to do a lot of money hunting to find stuff. Although most of the best weapons you can find or do get from quests. So keep that in mind if you feel like, oh, I don't want to grind for money. Don't. Just do some quests. And sorry, my nose is really itchy. But anyway, what was I also talking about? Armor was something that's really different. The armor in this game is not like the previous games where it's like kind of armor like how something like Final Fantasy is, where you have an armor that has a level to it that protects you more. It's not like that in this game. The armors are essentially how your character gains resistances to elements, and the armors also give um, hit points and magic power gains. So you can gain, a small bonus to your hit points and a small bonus to your MP, which is helpful. But it's not like you could probably, or honestly, you could probably just use nothing the entire game and be fine. I don't think it would really negatively affect you. But of course, you want to use the armor because it looks cool. Which is another point. The weapons and the armor you use affect your character in different ways. So the armor, beyond giving you MP and HP bonuses and deciding what your resistances are and your weaknesses are, also changes the appearance of your character model, which is cool. That's what the armor will change your appearance, but the weapons is different. So if you're using a heavier weapon, your swing will actually be slower, and if you're using a short sword or something, your swing on the screen when enemies attack you will be faster. So you have to keep that in mind when you're, because if you have to hit the enemies before they hit you, or they'll get like the first attack, which is bad for you. So you have to keep in mind like how the weapon attacks on the screen. So some have a step forward, and some of them don't, and some of them are slow, and some of them are fast. So you really have to pay attention to that, and you'll probably find ones that you like pretty quickly. The type of weapon that fits your style, I guess. I was always using a short sword, if you want to know. It's just really quick. And I was really bad at judging the distance a lot of times with the demons. So it's good to have the quick recovery on the short sword. And then I would just use magic in the battles, so it didn't matter if it was weak or not. So what else? I want to point out we're almost 40 minutes into this video. I've not even got past my first page of notes. So this video is going to be long. Have you guys seen a Spoonie video at any point? Imagine that. Let's see. Okay, bosses. I kind of talked about bosses. The bosses, well, I only kind of briefly talked about it, but the bosses I didn't think were difficult in most cases, and I'll explain why. In previous games in this series, the bosses required a strategy. If you've ever, for example, if you've ever played Digital Devil Saga, that game has a boss. It's like a bat. He's like a bat, I guess, and he has certain weaknesses, and he's only weak to those things. So if he you have to kind of really think of a strategy and how to build your party to beat him, or you just get killed because you can't affect him. And in this game, there's nothing like that. Every boss in the game has not everyone, nearly every boss until like almost right up until the end has some kind of elemental weakness. So it's a matter, almost all the boss fights kind of go in a pattern of just, what is the elemental weakness? Figure that out, and then exploit it. That's it. I mean, if you have your main character with all of the elemental attacks, and then you have your demon party with each demon has 2 different elements, you'll be basically set to kill any boss with no trouble whatsoever, because you'll get a full set of 8 attacks every round with that. All you need is 2 people with the same attack to be able to attack the boss 8 times. So in many cases, like, you can get through bosses in like 2 or 3 turns, because you just get so many attacks, and you'll be able to just rain on them with elemental attacks, because they all have a weakness, which is something I didn't like actually about the game. I didn't like that the bosses they all had a weakness. In previous games, the beginning bosses all had weaknesses, but even in Shin Megami Tensei 3, past the half point of the game, pretty much none of the bosses had any weaknesses. They had a lot of resistances, but they didn't have any like weaknesses that you could exploit. In this game, like almost all the bosses have a weakness, and bosses without a weakness don't even show up until like right around the end of the game. So it makes it really easy. It's just kind of there's no strategy to it. All you have to do is spam your attacks. Just spam your kind of elemental attacks until you find the weakness. So you might get unlucky if you use the first one and it's a reflect. Okay, that screwed you. But you know, you probably saved right before the boss battle anyway, so you just reload and there you are, back at the thing. Don't use the reflect, and you go for it again. And it takes out a lot of the strategy of the boss battles. So, I mean, again, if you didn't build a good party, you'll get killed every time. You'll just get wiped because if you don't have the weakness, if you don't have a character who can attack the weakness, you're not going to be strong enough. You'll just die. That's how it works. But generally, if you've built a good party, you're, it's easy. You can just run through everything. And I found that I was just running through everything. I didn't really have any trouble with. I can't even think of any bosses I had to fight more than twice. Maybe I had to fight some bosses 3 times at the most, and that was like ones that were trickier. There are ones that were tricky that I didn't like. The first time I fought, I didn't understand what I was supposed to be doing to fight them. There was something like that, and that was that was probably the best boss battle actually, because it actually made me think about how I had to fight it. And but beyond that, the boss battle's not so difficult, I didn't think. And I mean, somebody's obviously going to be disagreeing with me, but to me they were all kind of relatively easy. So let's see. Did I talk about abilities? I mentioned them. I know I've mentioned them, but I haven't talked about it specifically. So you can add a lot of abilities through applications. This is a lot like, I guess, Devil Survivor, Soul Hackers. Yeah, that's Devil Survivor, but it's Devil Summoner, Soul Hackers, and maybe Devil Summoner. I don't remember. But Soul Hackers has the thing where you can add applications to your to add extra abilities, and this has that also. You can add a lot of extra abilities that give you things like you can fuse demons higher level than you are, or add more ability to carry demons, or give HP recovery when you walk or something. There's a lot of stuff like that, and you get 10 points or so every time you level up. And if you've played Etrian Odyssey, you get a bonus in the beginning, so that's always helpful. But beyond that, there are a lot of applications, but there's nothing that's game breaking. There's nothing like you need this application right away. But I would suggest that you should save up 60 points or so and get the level up for abilities, because it's really helpful when you get like a one step up higher level abilities in the earlier part of the game than you would later on. It's helpful right away in the short term, but it's also helpful in the long term, because when you fuse things later, you get a better option. And what I'm going to do here is my camera is actually running out of space. This video is 45 minutes and I'm running out of space, so I'm going to end the video. I've still got a page or so of notes, so I guess I'll make a part 2, because this video is too long. 45 minutes, and I haven't been able to get through this impressions of Shin Megami Tensei 4. So see you in the next video. I'll probably upload them both at the same time or relatively close, so don't feel like I'm leaving you hanging. So see you in the next video, part 2, Shin Megami Tensei impressions.